Wynter Tai chats Tai Chi walking with Sifu Robert Chuckrow. Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the bell icon to be notified of future videos. Today, I'm joined with a respected Tai Chi practitioner, teacher, and author of Tai Chi Walking, published by YMAA Publications. In the book, he explores how Tai Chi principles can guide the way we move through everyday life. I'm excited and definitely looking forward to his insights, journey, and wisdom. So let's get into it. Without further ado, I present to you Sifu Robert Chuckrow. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you. I'm doing well.
Very good, very good. Thank you very much for the time you've taken out of your day to speak with me. So,
My pleasure.
let's go ahead and get into the interview, my sir. First question for you. How did you start the martial arts?
56 years ago, I happened to meet a childhood friend of my younger sister. And she recognized me, and we spoke, and she invited me to for lunch, and I went. And she said to me, you know, you are very stiff, because I had been doing a lot of calisthenics and building my muscles, and it was true, I was, and also very uncoordinated. And she was studying calligraphy. She was an artist studying calligraphy with Cheng Min Ching, who was ended up being my first teacher. And she said, you should go to that school. They'll teach you how to relax and how to be more able to move in a better way. So I went, and I saw these people. Just to observe a class, and I saw these people doing these slow movements, and I figured, what good could that be? Because I was used to doing chin-ups and push-ups and sit-ups and things like that. And I figured maybe if each of them had a 10-pound weight in each hand and were doing that, maybe then this would have some value. But I didn't see any value in it at all. But then the class ended, and there was a sword class, and then there was this one heavy guy who had been observing, because in those days very few people were overweight, and not like now. And that was also a negative. I said, well, how could this be for health when you see people like that as students? And he came into class, and he was moving around as the class was starting and doing sword movements, and it was like he was floating in the air when he moved. And I didn't know at the time that he was a pretty accomplished martial artist, judo and karate. And when I saw him move, and I said, if anybody who weighs that much can move that way, maybe there is something to this. So I signed up for 3 months of classes. I think it was $51 or something like that. It was very much a lot of money for me in those days, because I didn't have any money, but also I don't know what it would have been in today's dollars. And after a couple of weeks, I realized this is what I need, and I have been continuing with it till today.
Awesome, awesome. So that's you had alluded to at the time was 56 years ago, you said?
56 years ago, almost to the day.
Wow, that is
It was
awesome.
April 1970.
1970. That's really good. That is really good. So from then till now, it just never stopped.
Pretty much, yes, yes.
Very good.
And there were times when I had 2 or 3 teachers at the same time.
So you also said that Chen Manqing was your first teacher. So Tai Chi was your first style. So your other teachers, were they also Tai Chi?
Well, I had several who were. William C.C. Chen, Harvey Sober was another. Sam Chin Fan Xiang was another one. But I also studied other arts. I studied a little bit of karate and aikido and ninjutsu more extensively.
Right, all right.
And other movement arts too, not just martial arts. Kinetic awareness, and I studied spiritual teachings and healing and meditation, etc.
Okay, so that's many different arts. Okay, that's
Different, yes.
different movement arts. So it's basically many different types of movement, of course, right? Not just Tai Chi and so on like that. So with all of this experience in the martial arts world, 56 accumulated now, I do have to ask you a question, right? And seeing as how you do have teachers, like very noted teachers like Chen Manqing and William C.C. Chen as well, 2 very of great note. I feel confident in asking you this question, Sifu Chuckrow. What is Tai Chi?
Well, originally it was Tai Chi Chuan, which was, Chuan means fist, which means self-defense. And these original people, we don't know how far back it goes, but it was certainly hundreds of years ago, maybe much more, wanted to apply Taoist concepts to self-defense. So it was yin-yang, being in the moment, non-action, non-intention, non-attachment, circularity, continuity, naturalness, and all these things were brought in to create Tai Chi Chuan. And they thought of it as something that could protect their lives. They also were very adept at other martial arts. It wasn't just that. They had a lot of extensive knowledge and spent their lives learning and going places and learning from different people. They probably knew about herbs. They probably knew about all kinds of things that we nowadays don't even think about. And it was seen that when you did that kind of martial art, you were healthier, your mind worked better, it had a spiritual element, self-development element to it. And Yang Luchan, who was the original Yang practitioner that we know about, very famous, Yang the Invincible, nobody could do anything to him. Still famous in China, and that's probably why Yang style is so prevalent, wanted to spread Tai Chi. He saw that the population in China were sick. They were not getting the right food. They weren't doing the right kind of exercise. And he wanted to spread Tai Chi throughout China. And his grandson, Yang Chengfu, also had that idea. And Cheng Minqing, who was a student of Yang Chengfu, and others, also had that idea. And I think that was what Cheng Minqing was mainly interested in when he came to New York, and he saw how many ordinary people were interested in learning Tai Chi. There were a small group of high-level martial artists who had studied judo and aikido and karate, etc. But he may have taught on a different level. But for us, it was to be teachers, to spread Taiji. So Taiji at this point is very different from what it was. Now it's an exercise people do because their doctor tells them it's good for balance. There are people who think it's good for losing weight. I don't see that. I don't see that at all. They feel it's good for your immune system. It's good for your memory. I think it is good for all those things. There's no question about it. But they're not doing it as a martial art for the most part. There are some who do, who are very adept. There are some who are just amazingly adept at Taiji and have probably not even showing all the things that they know. So for most people, they're just dabbling in it. They're not getting very much of what they could if they really were serious about it and had teachers who were teaching more in depth. So this is a problem. It's very diluted now. People who don't have studied for maybe 6 months or a year are given a certificate to teach and are teaching, and they don't have the perspective that they would if they had studied under teachers who were showing and teaching more advanced concepts.
Very true. I do agree with you. It is a shame that there are people who get certificates, teaching certificates in less than, you say, 6 months, right? I think less than that sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes they get it even in hours just by doing a course online.
You can make your own. You can make your own.
That is true. That is true. I mean, after all, there's one of the things when I started out teaching, I was looking for to see if there was like one governing body, right? That oversees Taiji, like oversees the certification of the teaching, of everything, the forms and everything. Surprisingly, there was not. So, unfortunately, in my opinion, until you get something like that, you won't really have, set. Every school will have their own set rules and their own set regulations, which makes everything kind of chop suey, in my honest opinion, right? But of course, Taiji is Taiji, and I really do agree with you on that. So,
one thing about what you just said,
go ahead.
And that is, throughout history, there have been small numbers of people who had tremendous knowledge, and that knowledge was not given out to many. There are three possible reasons. One is they want to keep it for themselves, and they wanted it to be secret. That's true to a certain extent with Taiji. 2, the government prevented them from putting out this knowledge. 3, people weren't interested in it. Most people weren't interested in it. And that's always been the case, and that's the main reason. Because if somebody has knowledge, there will be a way of transmitting it to other people. Even if the government says, no, you can't. And that probably is going on even today in various parts of the world. But the main thing is the average person isn't interested in it. They dabble. They don't persist. They say, oh, I'll never be able to do this. And that is a barrier to success. But if people persevere and have that interest, they'll find the right teacher. Our schooling is the biggest barrier to all of that. It teaches you to not think, really, and not to have perseverance. and emphasizes the wrong things: competition, speed, etc.
Very true.
I could write a book on that. Having been in education for so many decades.
Of course, of course. So, you know, it also, to go along with what you said about the interest, something could definitely be said for Taiji, the way how Taiji is looked at today could be because of the general interest of people when they see Taiji, right? They see Taiji and they're interested in it because it looks relaxing. It looks effortless, right? Without anyone really know. I mean, on the outside, it looks effortless and looks relaxing and everything, but they have no idea of what's going on the inside, right? And then when they actually experience it, and then they realize that, well, when I should say they experience real Taiji, right? Not the chop suey, right? They come to find out that their perception was completely wrong. Right? That there is so much more work under the surface. Right? So, you know, there's a lot to be said about that interest that you alluded to. That's very true.
I agree with that totally. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
right. So
and when they find out that it's hard, they stop. Most of them.
Yes, that is very true.
I'll never be able to do this. And the answer, of course, is you'll learn. You'll learn.
That's true. My rebuttal to that with all of my students over the years has been, hey, if I can do it, you can do it too.
Right.
And this is something that everybody can learn, you know?
There was one thing that you had alluded to that I wanted to mention, and that is Taiji, how is Taiji as a martial art in today's world? I see that Taiji was a top martial art hundreds of years ago, but it's not a modern martial art. It doesn't take into account modern weapons. Firearms doesn't teach that. Doesn't teach bladed tools. You know, you're not going to carry a lance around with you, or a broadsword, or a double-edged sword, or a staff, a 6-foot-long staff. You're not going to go down the street with that. Maybe some areas. Doesn't teach using everyday tools, such as a comb, or a pen, or keys as a self-defense tool. Or being creative about what you use, whatever is at hand, which in those days people had to do. They used, if they were farmers, they used their farm tools. Whatever they had at hand, they were able to use for self-defense. A cane, an umbrella, an attaché case, even. Whatever it is. There's no groundwork, no throwing people, where you learn to receive the ground without being injured. There isn't practice on ice, on stairs, on maybe there is, but nobody seems to talk about that. There is a lot that's missing. Deception, getting people to think that they're seeing something they're not. Seeing my head, not where it is, but off to the one side. And that's the head they go to attack. And they miss. How is that possible? Well, it is. One of my teachers taught how to do that. And I feel, maybe I have it a little bit, nothing like the way he does. Learning how to hide, how to swim, how to do so many things that are not in Taiji, that are necessary in today's world. So that's my analysis of it. I don't think it's a valid martial art for today's world. You're not going to be always attacked with two people squaring off. And most of the training is to avoid all of that. that, to know when the guy is a block away, that this is somebody who is looking at you and wants to attack you, even though your back is turned, and you get out of there. Get back into your car. Don't park your car there. Just get going, even though you're late. I've done that. So things like that are missing from that art. That's today's world. Driving. You see how people drive their cars recklessly. They don't obey any laws. Any law I don't know any law that the majority of people observe. And those are there by people who thought about things to avoid accidents. And we have huge amount of accidents. So I know more people. I don't know anybody who's ever been shot or knifed, but I know a lot of people who either died or were seriously injured in automobile accidents. So that training should be there. That training should be there and carried over into everyday life. Most of the training is not. Even the martial arts training in most schools.
Very true.
I can't say most schools because I don't know most schools, but the schools that I've seen and people who, what I see online.
That is a very valid art, and that's going towards whether Tai Chi is an effective martial art or not, and that is valid. I'll be honest, Sifu. I spoke with another master teacher of Tai Chi, and David Dorian Ross. I don't know if you know him. He also is a fellow author on YMAA. He said the same thing. And when I asked him the same exact question, is Tai Chi an effective martial art? And he was like, no. He flat out. He was even more expressive with it. He said, I was like, is Tai Chi effective? And he said, fuck no. All right. Okay.
That sums it up.
Yeah. He's very animated, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that honesty. Of course, as you had said earlier, it comes down to how you were taught. Okay? If you were taught by someone who really knows how to use Tai Chi practically, well, then you most likely would also know how to use Tai Chi practically. And the same will be said. If your teacher doesn't know how to, you probably won't know how to, and you're going to have to seek somebody else to teach you. So I mean, I definitely 100% accept that answer, because again, the law of specificity applies. If you want to be good at something, you have to do it a lot. Hence, if you want to be a good fighter, that's why fighters fight 7-8 times a day. Right? So, so they could be good at fighting. So thank you very much for that answer. But of course, with that said now, Sifu Chuckrow, beyond the physical techniques, right? I have to ask, how has practicing martial arts shaped you, right? And how you live your daily life. So how has your martial training in particular, all these years, affected your life?
It's mind-boggling for me to think of all the things. When I started Tai Chi, I was very closed-minded. I thought, because I had just gotten my PhD in physics, that science could answer every question. And when people talked about Qi and different things, I felt sorry for them. I really felt sorry for them, because I said, they don't know what they're talking about. And maybe they didn't. I think a lot of them didn't. They just were using the word without knowing anything about it. But I think that Cheng Min Ching sensed my skepticism. I think he felt it. He came over to me and he said, touch my shoulder. I touched his shoulder and I went flying. I had no idea of how that happened. I didn't feel very much. It was just a warm touch. And then he said, do it again. to prove it wasn't just a coincidence. And the same thing happened. That affected me tremendously, because that was something I could not explain. And my mind started to open. And that got me into seeing things very differently. I got into spiritual teachings. I got into meditation. Instead of looking at something and seeing that something didn't make sense, putting it aside, I would say, well, there must be something to this, and I have to come up with explaining it. I have to understand it, because whoever said this had something in mind, and I want to know what that is. And that's my attitude now, that somebody does something different, I want to ask them a question. Or if they say, you're wrong, I don't say, no, I'm not. I say, please tell me, explain, teach me. And that's the way you learn. So it opened up avenues for me of thought, of movement, of awareness of other people, awareness of myself, of how I use my body, elements that are so far reaching that it's really changed my life. I really feel it has.
Sifu, it sounds like your martial experience has opened you up to a point of where you became more inquisitive, period, about life. Like it sounds like someone comes up to you with a new technique and you go, how'd that work again? Show me again. So you're always asking, you're always trying to find out, you're always learning. No, that is something to really, really, mimic. That's something to really look at, for me, actually, to keep on looking, inquiring, keep asking how, why. That's incredible. That is incredible, Sifu. Thank you very much for that insight. So we will go into our next question, my sir. Right? Right? Okay, because this question that I'm burning to ask this one, right? Because we have to get to it, right? How, with all of these, the different aspects of Tai Chi, right? To zero in on one particular aspect, something very specific, and then go off on it. Right? My question to you is, how did you come to and focus to write about Tai Chi walking?
Well, at the time, there were some books on. There was a book on Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. There was a book called Tai Chi Running, and my publisher, YMAA, called me and said, "Could you write a book on Tai Chi walking?" And my answer was, "There's not enough to write about, but I'll think about it." And I did for a year. So I would watch people walk. For example, I'd go to the store with my wife, a clothing store where there was nothing for me, and find a place to sit. This one store that she liked didn't have any chairs, but it had wheelchairs in the vestibule. So I'd sit in a wheelchair, and as people came in and out, I'd watch them walk. And I saw all kinds of things. I saw that most people have bad alignment. And by most, I mean almost all. They pronate their knees. They hyperextend their knees. They wear heels on shoes, which I had already given that up, and I make my own shoes without heels. I first tried to put that on and decided, no, I don't need that. They have a lot of up and down when they walk. They're not paying attention when they walk. waddle. They shift their weight from one side to the other because they're angling their feet out, which is the precursor to falling. They take steps that are longer than they could, than they should, especially smaller people, to keep up with taller people. When I questioned people, this is before cell phones, a lot of people didn't carry flashlights with them. And that was the time when those little LED flashlights were starting to come out. And I had an experience where I was asked to give a demonstration in a church, and I asked where the bathroom was, and they said, go upstairs, and I went upstairs, and then when I came out, the lights had all been turned out. Everything was pitch dark, and I didn't have a flashlight. And I had to crawl to the stairs to find the stairs and go down. After that, I carried a flashlight. So by then, I knew about flashlights. I have to carry that all the time. People didn't even think of that. People didn't have any idea of footwear. The footwear was terrible that I saw, especially women's footwear. Now it's changed. It's a lot better now. Not the high heels, but they make shoes that are more natural. And if you follow the history of footwear, it's very crazy. You know, they had shoes 100 years ago that were not the shape of a foot, but pointed toe in each shoe. And every day, because the shoe would start to get the shape of a foot, they would switch sides to keep that pointed shape. Why? Who knows? Nobody's feet are that way. And of course, people's feet became pointed as a result of wearing those shoes. So there were all these things that I sought to write about, and I started writing, and it mushroomed. And I thought of more and more things, and thought about foot massage and hygiene of the feet, and running was the thing that I was doing in those days, and talked about doing that in a safe way. Talked about fast walking, which I thought was not a good thing, very unnatural. So it became a book, and I just looked at it recently, and I see there's a lot in it. And what I did all the way through was to try to apply the Tai Chi principles to every aspect of it that I could. So that was my idea in that book. And that nobody had ever written a book on walking before. It wasn't my idea, it was my publisher's idea. But now I see it's all over the place. All over the place. And a lot of it is written by artificial intelligence and has nothing to do with Tai Chi.
You know, I was about to ask that because, like, all right, so I've heard about this. I've never seen it myself, right? But my students come to me and ask me about, hey, Sifu, have you seen the Tai Chi walking thing on YouTube? I'm like, right? But like, yeah. So there's this muscular Chinese guy talking about Tai Chi walking and stuff like that. He can lose weight and stuff. I'm like, you know, to this day, Sifu Chuckrow, I still have not seen it. So I don't know what they're talking about. But from I hear that it's on the internet, the only thing I can think of automatically is, okay, someone's trying to sell your product to make some money, right? So they'll tell you, okay, so if they really do know Tai Chi, they'll tell you what Tai Chi walking is, what you need to do, but then after that, they'll try and give you even more programs that have nothing to do with Tai Chi walking to sell you to make even more money, right? So that was my initial thing, right? But now when it was Gene Ching, right?
Yeah.
Big ups to Gene Ching for introducing us and you know, connecting us so I can actually speak with you. When he had told me about you and he was like, remember this whole Tai Chi walking thing? Well, I'm going to introduce you to the guy who literally wrote the book on it. I'm like, okay, all right. So Since I'm talking to Sifu Chokra, I have to ask you about this Tai Chi walking program that you just mentioned, right? How much of it is really for us, Tai Chi walking, right? Is it?
How much of it is what?
How much of it is, do you think, is really for us as Tai Chi practitioners, real Tai Chi walking?
Well, that's the other side of it that I thought of, and that is that by watching how you walk, what is natural, the natural part of it, is something that should be brought into Tai Chi movement and is not for many people. So when they step, they tighten up their legs, most people, and they move the whole leg out. They sort of throw the leg out instead of having the natural swing that people do when they walk. Most people have that swing. If you watch people walk, the body is going forward. The leg that just stepped goes behind as the body progresses. And then there's a certain point, which is a natural timing, where the knee starts to go forward, the lower leg hangs back, and then when the knee stops, the lower leg swings forward. And then that's the next step. People don't do that in Tai Chi. Not, some of them do, but most don't. So a lot of what you can learn by walking can be transferred to Tai Chi form. And it made a big difference for me when I started to, having written that book, it made a big difference for me. What I do, I go to the supermarket, I get a cart, whether I need it or not, and I use the stability of the cart and some of the lift of the cart, and then I feel that natural way of walking where every step has that beautiful timing and that beautiful release of any contractive tension to make it happen. That's a very natural experience, and I recommend all of that to my students, that they go to a supermarket, even if they never are in a supermarket, get a cart and just walk and feel what that feels like. Keeping an even keel, an even speed, not an up and down, not sideways, just keeping on moving forward and feeling that is informs your movement in Tai Chi, whether you're doing that or not. You should, because it should be natural.
Very true, very true.
Thank you for asking that question. I didn't think of that.
No problem, sir. No problem. You know, when we speak about Tai Chi walking, you know, it's one of the things that I love to focus on in my Tai Chi classes. And the reason is because my teacher, Sifu Stephen Hua, right, from classical Tai Chi, that's one of the things that he likes to focus on as well, Tai Chi walking, and how to incorporate Neigong into your walking, right? Making it natural, right? By that pull, you know, like when you step before yourself and you pull yourself forward. You step behind your body and you pull yourself back, all to incorporate the abdominal wall as well as the back into all of your walking actions. So yes, the Tai Chi walking is something that I myself focus on all the time when it comes to all my students, because really the walking as well as the silk reading, those are two of the most basic things in Tai Chi. And if you don't get them right, then you're just not doing Tai Chi properly and you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
That's my opinion right there. So let's go ahead and continue into our next question. Sifu Chokrow, I'm ecstatic about all of your answers because your insights are spot on. They are perfect. So in your experience, what's the most challenging aspect a student could face when developing their Kung Fu?
Well, the character for Gong is very interesting. It's on the right side. There's a character which seems to suggest an arm and the strength of an arm doing work, which is Li, which is just ordinary strength. To the left is the carpenter's square, which suggests practice, training, precision, persistence. And so Gong Fu means persevere and you will succeed. It's the conceptual framework of China. It really is. And that's why they're so successful in so many ways. And also of a lot of other Asian countries. So the idea is, don't give up. Don't say, I can't do it. Keep persevering. If the teacher can, as you said, if I can do it, my students can do it. I say that to them too. I say, we're in the same bodies. Mine was much more, I was much more out of my body than any of you are. So if I could do it, you can do it. If I can move gracefully, if I can use my body in a natural way, you can do it too. You can learn, and I'll teach you. But people don't have that attitude because the schools have taught people, are training people, and they still are, even progressive schools, which I taught in one for 27 years. They don't even realize anymore that schools were started to take kids off the farms and train them to be able to sit and do repetitive tasks on the assembly line. And that's what it's still doing. It's still doing that. It's not teaching kids how to think. It's teaching kids to just do repetitive tasks and not make mistakes. Mistakes are bad because the car will be a lemon if you make a mistake. It won't pass inspection, etc., etc. If you don't do it fast, it'll hold up the whole line. We won't make as much money. The boss, the company won't make as much money. So you have to, and if you can't do it, we'll get somebody else who can. Don't come back. So that's the training we've been exposed to. The teacher asks a question, the kid raises his hand right away. That's the kid that gets called on. The kid answers the question. If it's correct, the kid gets a gold star in quotes. All the other kids are just feel, I'm stupid. I didn't get that. Why didn't I get that answer? Why didn't I know that? It rewards speed. It rewards the wrong things, competitiveness. Instead of, that was the beauty when I started doing martial arts, that each person learns at his or her own rate. That it's self-development. And there's no one end product. Everybody's end product is different because they're different people. And they get different things out of it. When I hear things that students have gotten from my classes, I'm amazed because I may not have even thought about some of those things. Different from what I've gotten. So there isn't that attitude of persevering. Now in China it was different because it was, instead of manufacturing, it was rural, it was agriculture. And you saw how things took time, the crops took time to grow. You didn't just try to pull the plants up by the roots and damage them. You wanted nature to do it. So there was an understanding of nature and an understanding of the natural progression. And that's why they were so good at these things. But most of us don't want to do that. We don't have that attitude. And people, right away, I can't do this. I'll never learn this. No, you will. You just have to stay with it. You have to practice. Oh, I don't want to get it wrong. If I practice, I'm going to make a mistake. You have to make mistakes. The mistakes are for learning. How else can you learn? They have the wrong attitude from school, and they carry it over, and it's not good. And that is the major thing that you have to defeat when you teach martial arts, is that willingness to give up and just say, I'll never be able to do it.
Can I tell you, Sifu, the first time that I ever said, I can't do this because I'm afraid of making mistakes, the teacher I said that to said, Exactly what you said. If you don't make mistakes, you won't learn. The feeling I had when he told me that, it made me feel good because it made me feel good to make a mistake. I couldn't wait to make another mistake. So I said, okay, fine. Until I get it right, I'll make mistakes. Right. So finally, when something came easily and got it right on the first try, it just felt weird. It felt like, hey, I need to make mistakes, man. This is not right.
Every mistake is an opportunity. You do something, you have an interaction with another person that goes sour. That now is an opportunity to learn something about yourself, about the other person, about how things could go better, how the next time something similar happens, you will avoid that mistake and go to something where you end up with both people being lifted up instead of having the animosity. Mistakes are there for our learning, and we have to make them. Every day we're making mistakes, but you don't try to make mistakes. You don't want to do that. But when you do make a mistake, to see, instead of punishing yourself the way they do in school, you got that wrong. You're not going to pass this course if you keep making that mistake. No. Instead, you say, this is an opportunity for me to understand something and use it that way.
It's just the frame of thought. You just have to change that.
Yeah, in the ninjutsu class that I took, we'd start the class with chanting this in Japanese, which I don't know Japanese, but the translation was, every moment is an opportunity for enlightenment, and you decide whether it is or isn't. Isn't that beautiful?
It is. It is.
Start and end the class that way. It's just saying that.
That's a great saying. That is a great saying. Thank you very much for that insight, Sifu. Wow. So, I mean, the bottom line of everything is the beautiful word you had said at the beginning, persevere. Right? If you persevere, right, then you'll see your rewards, right? It's this instant gratification culture that we have nowadays. Everything is, I want it and I want it now kind of attitude. Right? Very, very seldom do we see someone who's willing to work for something and spend time to work on it. Well, that's just the way how it is nowadays, right? That's definitely. So I'm going to take you now, Sifu Chuckrow, into my most cerebral question. Right? And it is, if you could teach the new generation of martial artists only one thing, it could be technique, it could be philosophy, but it's only one thing, what would it be?
Well, if it's only one thing, I have to limit it. What I tell my students is, at various points in the class I say, and by the way, I am not teaching self-defense. I refer to it, I use it to inform students of what could be and how the form should be compatible with what it was originally meant to be, which is a motion study for practicing martial arts, but a slow motion study. What I say to them is, any questions? There's only one student usually who will ask a question. A good one, too. This woman is very highly trained in music, was a conductor, has studied with top people, has studied music with top people. She asks really good questions. Every now and then other students do. I say, listen, you have to, when you practice, have a pad, piece of paper, and a pen or a pencil, and write down things that come into mind. And then bring that into class and ask a question. By asking a question, you don't know what answer you'll get. So it's going to be good for you. Even if the teacher says, gee, I don't know, I want to try to find out. For the teacher, it's great because it sparks something that would never be sparked. Finding out something that you never thought about before, and now incorporating that, learning about that. Or something that you do know and enjoying the thrill of explaining it and seeing it come out clearly, which you struggled so many years to achieve. But it also helps all the rest of the class. And if it's something the teacher doesn't know, you're giving them a real gift. Teacher says, wow, that's a great question. I don't know the answer, but I'm going to find out. And that, when I was an elementary school student, I remember asking a teacher a question, and she said, I don't know, but I think my husband will know. I'm going to ask him, and I'll tell you tomorrow what he says. That impressed me so much. That stayed with me till today. And and in classes where, when I taught physics, where I'd make a mistake at the blackboard. I'd do, this is advanced stuff, and I'd do a problem, a very complicated problem, and I'd know the answer was wrong. And I'd say to the class, I made a mistake somewhere. How do I know I made a mistake? There were ways of knowing, and I wanted to teach them that. Then I'd say, where is the mistake? And I'd give them time to think about it. And the energy of the class was so terrific at that point. That was learning on a level that they had never experienced before, or that you don't see in normally. Maybe they would experience it before, but not often. And they'd be really thinking so deeply. And then if a kid came up with the answer, or if I came up with the answer and it came out, they would never forget that. Never forget it. And that's really the way physics is. You're always trying to find your mistakes. You're making mistakes all the time. You can't learn it without that. And to have that asking of a question, finding somebody to ask, that's how learning goes on. And if you don't ask the questions, very limited learning, very limited progress.
That's a great answer. That is a great answer, Sifu Chuckrow. The way how I see, okay, I don't know. I look at things kind of different, I guess. But your answer to that question, the way how I see it is, you answered it through your own personal experience. Just like how I had asked you, how has your martial arts training affected your life, right? And I kind of zeroed down into that your martial arts training made you more, what's the word? It's on the tip of my tongue. Made you want to ask more questions.
Receptive.
There you go, right? So essentially the question to that, the answer to this last question I asked you about what would be the last thing, what would be the only thing that you teach, right? Or, sorry, what would be the one thing that you would teach to the new generation? And it is to be perceptive. Understandable, right? Ask questions. If you don't ask your questions, you're not going to find out, and you're not going to get to the bottom of anything. So I have to be amazed by that answer, that full circle answer, Sifu Chuckrow. That's incredible.
And the way of looking at it is, in those days, how could you defend yourself against another person and know what they're going to do before they do it? Be able to interact with them in a way where you're going to go home to your family without being injured. If you don't even understand yourself, if you don't have that questioning attitude and going into another person's mind, another person's body, you can't do that if you haven't done it with your own. So that's the training that I was exposed to. Self-examination. Always trying to learn more about yourself and another person, to know another person too, and to hear. How are you going to do that unless you listen to other people, unless you learn from them too?
Very true. Very true. Very true. I'm loving it. I have loved where this conversation has gotten to, Sifu Chuckrow.
Well, thank you.
I'm kind of disappointed right, that we've gotten to this question, because that means we're almost at the end of this interview, right? But for those interested in learning more or reaching out to you, what's the best way that they can get in contact with you?
Oh, well, I have a website. It's Chuckrow, that's my last name, Chuckrow.com. And I have a lot of articles on Tai Chi, on health also. A lot of articles on health, but not things you hear in other places. Most of it is things that I've learned over the years from old books and tried out, and self trials, and opening people's minds to things that they would not get otherwise about health. Or your email address would be, it's R as in Robert, M as in Mary, P as in Peter, at bestweb.net. That's my email address. And I try to answer all emails. It takes a lot of time. I try to give good answers, because that helps me to understand more too. The email would be a good way if they want to contact me. I'll get it. I'll see it, even if it's in my spam folder.
Contact information for Sifu Robert Chuckrow will be in the description down below. Also in the description down below will be a link for Feiyue shoes. If you need a link to Feiyue shoes, if you need a pair, go ahead and click the link down below. Get the best prices, get the best deals, all at Feiyue shoes. Also in the description down below, will be a link for DUBBY Energy. If you need Jitterless Energy on the go ahead and click that link down below for DUBBY Energy.
Get a copy of Sifu Chuckrow's book, Tai Chi Walking, on YMAA.com. Link in the description below.
Sifu Robert Chuckrow, thank you very much for the time that you've taken to speak with me and be on the podcast, sir. It has been fun. It has been real. I have learned a lot from you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is great. I really appreciate it.